Hello again, I'm Dave Apsley. I'm a forester and a natural resources specialist with Ohio State University Extension. Today is April 19th and I'm joining you from Cantor's Cave 4-H Camp near Jackson, Ohio. I'd like to introduce you to yellow poplar. It's also called tulip tree or tulip poplar. And none of those names are actually very botanically correct because it's not related to the poplars. The populus family of the poplars actually includes the aspens and the cottonwoods. And this one's not related at all. It's actually related to the magnolias, which we'll talk more about that later when we talk about the flowers. But it's very unique in another way, in fact, that it has leaves that have 4 lobes. So if you think about most leaves, they have an odd number of lobes. They have a tip at the top, and then they have lobes on both sides. This one actually has lobes on each side and 2 lobes near the tip. And then it has either kind of a flattened top, but normally it has a little notch in it. So instead of coming to a nice point, you're going to see a notch at the very tip. And the leaf kind of resembles a tulip, the flower from the side. They can get 5 to about 7 inches in length. They can be a fairly large leaf, and those leaves do alternate sides of the twig. Right now, these leaves are just popping out of the buds, and some of them are actually still folded in half. And one of my favorite parts of this tree is it actually has very unique buds. Those buds are valvate. They actually have 2 bud scales, and they look a lot like a duck's bill. You'll see a seam down the middle, and then as that bud breaks in the spring, you're going to see little leaves stacked inside there, and they start unfolding one at a time. They're folded in half, they unfold, and then new leaves emerge. And you can actually take that bud apart during the winter months and predict how many leaves are going to come out of this tree. Right now it's April 19th and the leaves are really starting to expand. When you look up on the hillside, you're going to see a little bit of a green tinge to it, and a lot of that's yellow poplar. Yellow poplar leaves are alternate. They do alternate sides of the twig. And then the other characteristics that make it really unique are the flowers. I mentioned earlier that it's relative of the magnolias. So unlike most magnolias that are native, they'll produce white or creamy white flowers. This one produces a very unique flower. It's fairly large, 3 to 5 inches or so in diameter. They're green, orange, and yellow, so a very unusual color combination. They're really good for pollinators, but you typically don't see many of them because they're so high up in the crowns of these massive trees. If the trees are open grown, sometimes you can find the flowers down low. But in a wooded setting, typically you don't see much evidence of these flowers until they start breaking apart and falling to the ground. These flowers start to mature in the month of May normally in southern Ohio. After the flowers are mature, it's going to produce fruits. And these trees are very prolific seeders. They produce these little cone-like structures with these hooked seeds. They're a winged seed, kind of look like an ash seed somewhat, but instead of having that same seed, they have more of a hook at the end, and these seeds are all kind of aggregated together in this cone-like structure. In the fall and the winter months, you can look up at the crown and it almost looks like a walnut or something up there from below, but if you can get to the side, they look like a cone, and they're packed full of these seeds. And it doesn't take long at all to find them on the forest floor. I probably took a second to dig away a little leaf litter under this yellow poplar stand to find dozens and dozens of these seeds. And these seeds will lay dormant in the understory until there's a disturbance. Once there's a disturbance and you get lots of light to the forest floor, then they'll germinate and start growing. So this species really does well in full light conditions, and it battles hard to stay up in the canopy. So another great characteristic of this tree is you'll look up and you don't see much crown except in the very top part of that tree. They don't have big spreading crowns. They have a nice central leader and a little tight crown. You'll also notice they self-prune very well. So again, very few leaves down low. They make beautiful straight lumber, and they can pack in very tight on a good site, which typically is a slope, probably lower on the slope, east or north facing, where you have deep soils and plenty of moisture. They can get massive. They can get very tall, well over 150 feet in height. At Joyce Kilmer down in the western part of the North Carolina, you'll find these trees 5 to 7 feet in diameter, just massive trees that grow very fast. So as far as lumber production, they can be a pretty valuable tree. On a per board foot basis, they're nowhere near as valuable as, say, black walnut. But because we can grow these trees so tall and they're very knot free, and because they grow with such small crowns, we can grow a lot of bird footage on an acre on an annual basis. They're packed in there, they grow very fast, they grow very tall, so we get lots of volume stacked on top of each other. As far as wildlife value, doesn't have a ton of wildlife value except for the flowers that produces and the fact those flowers are used by pollinators. As a young squirrel hunter, I did find squirrels using these poplar cones when they're still green and there's not a lot of other food available. They will actually eat on those cones as well. So again, this is yellow poplar. Probably the best way to describe it when you see it in the woods. They have very straight stems. They don't taper a lot. You'll see lots of them behind me in this stand. And they're actually beautiful. Bark varies a lot. It can be very smooth with some vertical streaks in it when they're young. It gets this pattern, which to me looks very similar to, say, an ash tree. And then as it gets older, it gets very deeply furrowed. So again, yellow poplar, or tulip tree, and it's a member of the magnolia family. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and please take at least part of it to spend it in the woods.